Right. This is the 11th of December 1975. The vast continent of China has the oldest recorded history in this planet's most recent civilization. But even that is only a fragment of all the different humanities that have lived on this planet since it was able to support life, and the Creator Lords peopled this earth. The history of China in itself, a huge continent, is a complete humanity and is a parallel one to that of the Arabic, Islamic and Jewish peoples recorded in the Christian Bible and other similarly kept records in India, all dealing with how information or the word of God came to mankind, which must always be through one or more members of each nation's humanity, chosen as the voice of God. There is no other way, as all other ways have been tried over and over again with all different humanities, not only in this planet, but in countless others, peopled by others similar to those of this planet. All other ways have been proven to be of no value. In the end, there must be the written word, and humanities not intelligent enough to read and write can only understand the legends, myths, and fables of storytellers, and most often turn to the worship and veneration of idols, which to an intelligent person would immediately present itself as false. But whereas the records kept in the Christian and Indian religions have survived, in part at least, those in China and Japan have not. They too have had their prophets and holy men sent to them, and have in prehistory long ago destroyed and persecuted them. They too have among them those who are possessed of the wealth gene, who in the past have amassed huge wealth only for themselves. They too, before the present era, have always accepted reincarnation as it was told to them by their prophets, and yet they disregard the plight of the poor and starving around them, even with the knowledge that they might return as such, one of these such, preferring to enjoy life only for the moment. The folly of these people is obvious to any who care to look at this continent and study its recent history. The starvation and horror that its people have endured, and how communism, with its unspoken despair of many, is now very much in evidence. They must live now under the restrictions of the iron will of man, not the joy, peace and prosperity that was conveyed to them in the past by their prophets of old. If the rest of the world will only consider this history, it will soon see that it is the same history which must occur in the rest of this planet's nations, if it continues to plunge recklessly on, allowing some to amass huge wealth, with no care for the planet and the poor around them. These are men who have power and wealth to manipulate the world's affairs, and have no allegiance to any people, and care nothing except for amassing even more power and wealth than they have already, playing an evil game with this planet's future. Many of these who were sent to China with spiritual wisdom, who were intended as guides, philosophers and teachers to bring comfort, joy and prosperity to their people, were so scorned and derided for their beliefs that they turned away from their seemingly impossible task and formed themselves into small groups or bands or believer philosophers, converting perhaps a few, but all too often suffering persecution and death for their trouble. This is my comment. Somewhere I've heard that the Oriental races were once brought here from another planet. This other planet, in prehistorical times, believed that if they rid themselves of what they considered as their lower orders, they would have a trouble-free planet. Similarly, in Georgian times, we transported much of our criminal element to Australia and other faraway places, believing that it would bring crime to an end in this country, never bothering to consider the desperation and poverty that drove some of the so-called criminal element to commit their crimes. However, the planet who marooned all those races that are now termed the Oriental-type peoples must have been technologically more advanced than we are now, as they were capable of space travel. They left the different tribes here with the precious knowledge that they have in acupuncture, herbal medicine, and many other artistic and simple technical devices they still use for everyday living. The Oriental people are also very good farmers and gardeners, but what this higher order of people from the original planet failed to realize was that they themselves had evolved from the people they were casting away onto another planet, Quite what this might have meant to them eventually is that possibly it brought their race to an end on the home planet. There are some ancient drawings showing some higher alien people with slanted eyes. However, all these Oriental races have been here so long that now many of the white races here have evolved from them here also. One personal theory of mine is that if you take easily to Tai Chi or Qigong or any of the different Oriental exercise routines, then you possibly are one such person. I am much better with yoga and have been told that I have passed through some of the ancient different Arabic races, but not on this planet. It has been noticed by many that the different movements performed by the Muslims when they're praying is very yogic in nature. And I went on one of the marches in support of the Palestinian people, and I always feel very much at one with those sort of people. So obviously I have a history there. Many of us should think about where we've possibly come from, which countries in the world that we feel an affiliation with, their history, their food, their customs. I'm very fascinated with India and with the Arabic nations. Although when it comes to race, I think many of the original people who were on this planet, we've so mixed ourselves up that we're no longer the races that we were. I mean, I've always thought that the Moors were a sort of ancient black race, but in fact they weren't. The beautiful buildings that they left behind in Spain were apparently tall and fair-skinned and blue-eyed, green-eyed, red-haired, blonde. There's some very marvellous learning that they left behind in Spain, but there's also some wonderful learning that is in the Arabic nations too. Much of it's been destroyed. It would be lovely if we could all get together and start sharing all this knowledge, wouldn't it? Right, Miles, I finished that one.